on the top of my foot, and it's a little bit sore. It's not a heavy coffee table, but it's not something I normally want to do. But I think I'll manage today. So welcome to, this is like yin, like with a little flavor of a yang kind of flowiness to it. So a little bit of yin to begin with, quite a lot of yin, but a little bit at the beginning. And then we'll do some kind of flowing in and out of some lunges and some side angle stuff. And then we'll kind of come back towards the yin again for some stuff on our back. So what we're going to do to start with is we're going to lie down in a butterfly position. So if you wanted to have like a little lift in your chest and you've got like some pillows, or if you have a blanket, this will let the shoulder relax by kind of letting the arm, like the tension on the muscles that support the shoulder, these kind of deeper muscles. We can't really get to those with stretching. They're deep, they're mostly about stabilization. And so we get to those by relaxing. And so that is what this bit will be like. So if you have a blanket, or you can use a pillow like that, like a yoga bolster or something like that, but you don't want it to be too big. You can also just lie down without any props. That will also work. But if you have a blanket, roll it up so that you've got kind of like a long, relatively skinny shape. Like that, you know. This will go down the middle of your back. And then lie down over it and get it in position that you like. So I like mine, I like the bottom of the blanket to end a little bit below my rib cage so that it's kind of on my first couple of lumbar vertebrae, but not down near the very, very bottom. I like my sacrum to not be touching the blanket because it's just the angle of it doesn't always match. So I like it better if I don't have the pressure from the blanket. Okay, so then I'm gonna take my feet and put the feet together and drop my knees open. And so that's an inner thigh stretch. And if I wanna, I've got this pillow here. You can do a couple little pillows, but that'll just give you a little bit of support for the legs. You can also go without support there if it's feeling okay. Now, if I take my arms out wide, that's gonna get more into the bigger muscle of my chest. So to get into the shoulder where I really wanna do this deep stabilizers, because sometimes, I don't know if this happens to you guys, but when I use my computer or any of my devices, my shoulders, the arm bones are held in this position. And the thing about the deep stabilizer muscles in the shoulder is they will stabilize you however you hold your arm. So over time, those kinds of postures, especially if you have a desk job and you work there all the time, those kinds of postures tend to hold the shoulder in this kind of tight and forward position. So what's cool about this is if we get the arms relatively close to the body, not hugging up against it, but just not way out wide, just like if you held your arm out and just naturally put it down like that, and then let the shoulders fall over this blanket. This is a great way to release this really deep tension from the shoulder joint. And I feel like I could use this every day, really. If I feel like I'm holding my arms, that I just jiggle them a little bit further out, because I don't want to feel like I'm trying to hold my arms. I just want gravity to take it. And just let my arm hang out. Sometimes it's helpful to put like a little gentle smile on my lips. Just kind of relax a little bit in the kind of emotional level. I'm struggling a little bit today in some ways, emotionally. Need to not look at Facebook in the morning. So it doesn't make me crazy. But that little kind of smile on the face is helpful. Stay for about another minute and a half or so. If you need a little bit more support under your legs, throw that in. So we're gonna make 2 more big breaths here. Now, when your exhale finds you the next time, bring your knees together, and then you can remove any support you have under your legs. And then we're going to take this support out from under the back and just set this guy off to the side. Oh. And then, oh, my favorite part of this is just noticing where it kind of lands me in my back. Oh. And quite often, it just feels like, my arm bone has dropped back where it belongs, right? Which lets kind of it feels a little bit less, like there's a little bit less pressure on my collarbones, if that makes any sense. And my upper back, there's still kind of an impression of the blanket initially, but now that that's over, everything just feels like it's touching the ground again, instead of big, sort of drawn off the floor. So we're gonna do a banana pose, just kind of continue this idea of lengthening, but with a side stretch. So to do the banana pose, you can reach both arms up, but just reach one arm, and then you're gonna bend in that opposite direction. So right arm is going up and I'm bending to my left, right? And then I'm gonna just kind of swing my legs over there, and then as I let my body relax, see what happens. So some people may find that if they cross their right ankle over their left ankle, they're gonna like that a little bit better. Some people may want to put a little bit of a blanket under the knees. Some people may want to reach this left arm up here and kind of cup that right wrist with the left hand. Others of us may want to leave our left arm out of it, okay? So it's really up to you how you organize this. For me right now, feeling my left arm kind of like a cactus out to the side is kind of nice. And then having that right arm up and over. But for you, you might want to bring both arms down and have more of a cactus and less of an overhead thing. So we're going to stay here for about another minute. Sort of tension that I experience around the armpit and from between, like I can feel the kind of part of my tricep that connects through the muscles of my upper back. They kind of weave themselves around each other, and that's an interesting sensation as well. Just to feel places where muscles overlap. So we're going to take a nice big breath, and then we're going to kind of meander back to the center here, and you can do little windshield wipers with the knees, or bring your knees into your chest and give yourself that little back massage again. I like to kind of shake out my shoulder a little bit. And that arm I had overhead, it was nice. That arm now feels a little longer, which is interesting. But in any case, so it may be that you need another breath or two. When it feels like your spine is mostly in that kind of neutral shape, I gotta angle myself a little differently here, then we can take that left arm up and over and kind of curve over to the right and swing the legs over. And again, you can adjust the right arm either to grab hold of that wrist or just kind of let it hang out. And then let your body get heavy on the floor. And we'll stay a while. Take a nice deep breaths. So we're just shy of 1 minute left here. So take a nice big breath, and then with your exhale, you'll just sort of meander back to the center. Give yourself the little windshield wipery bits. Now we're gonna do some cat-cow kinds of shapes, and you can do these either kneeling, which is kind of a more normal way to do it, or you can join me. I'm gonna do some seated versions. So I'm gonna roll to my side, because I like these seated ones right now. I don't know, I go through stages where I like one version more and then another version more. But in any case, if you have a preference for the kneeling version, you can do that instead, because we're all gonna wind up in the same place eventually. But if you're into it, like I do just kind of a loose cross leg. Sometimes I'll even do more of that butterfly shape, and then kind of lean forward, bring the pelvis forward and arch. And I think the reason I'm liking this right now is because I have this kind of freedom to move a little differently through the arms. And when I'm pushing off against the floor, my arms are kind of weight bearing, and so it's just different. I like them both. They're both great, but do the one you like best. Oh. And right now, this is kind of my shtick, my thing. Now, because I'm doing this seated version, I'm gonna kind of start to churn this whole thing around in a circle, which I think might be one of the reasons I really like this thing. So as I come over, kind of front, over to the side with the ribs, wrap it around the back. I'm letting the pelvis and the rib cage just move however I can move them independently of one another. They're also joined together via all the muscles of my abdominal wall. So, you know it only goes so far. All right, so I'm in the back and I'm going to switch directions. So when I get all the way around to the front here, I'm going to pause. Okay, now we're going to come up to all fours. I told you we were going to meet up in the same place. So come into an all fours position. We are going to take one leg forward. And so this kind of gives us a lunge. Now, I'm going to move my foot just a little bit further out so that my knee is not really past my ankle at this point, and I'm standing basically with my hip right over my knee. So I've got kind of room, I've got some room. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to float forward through my hips, right? So I'm going to bend my knee closer to or bring my knee closer to my ankle, and then I'm going to float backward, right? So as I float forward, this becomes more of a hip flexor stretch. As I float backwards, this becomes more of a hamstring stretch. I'm going to float about 3 more times. Just feeling things out here. Now on this last time, I'm going to pause in the front, okay? So I'm bringing my hip forward, and I'm just going to pause right there. Now, I've got some furniture beside me that I can hold on to. You can put your hands on the floor if you want. You might get visited by your small furry coworkers, or large furry coworkers, as the case may be. Some of you guys have some very large coworkers. So I'm going to do one more breath here. Just giving myself a little bit more of a back bending shape. All right, so now we're going to go straight back. Now, I'm going to start with one hand on either side, and you can put blocks here, and straighten out the leg. Now, what happens when I do this is this outer hamstring experiences more stretch. Now, this may be true for you, or it may not be, but notice. Now, I'm going to pause here for one more breath. And then I'm going to bring both hands on my exhale over here to the center, and I'm going to walk my hands out to the diagonal, keeping this leg as straight as it will allow me to keep it. So that now I've shifted the stretch more to these inner hamstrings by doing this. I'm just going to let myself fold a little more forward. I don't know if this is true for you. Just check out what's happened and see. Oh boy, I like it though. It's my jam right now. I like this stretch. Okay, so we're going to walk this back together, and we're going to wind up sitting on the mat. So I could just sit down over here like this, or I might have had to go back to all fours to make that happen. Now this leg is going to get spun around like that. So you can bring this foot all the way over, or you can keep the foot out a little wide. So if you missed all those moves, just join me here. Just sit down on your bum and put your legs out like this. All right, so then we're gonna fold sideways over this leg. And we're gonna hold this for a little while. I don't know how long, a while. You don't have to have your arm over your head the whole time. We're going to stay maybe 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, somewhere in that neighborhood. So right now I'm liking how my arm is kind of stretching out this territory, kind of coming back to that thing we did at the beginning with the banana pose. But in a second, I'm going to switch this thing up. Okay, it might be more than 1 second. It'll be a little bit. Okay, last breath here. And now I'm going to bring my arm out and just kind of slide it behind my back. So now I'm asking a little different stretch to happen here. And I'm going to let the stretch turn into more of a sensation around my neck. And if this feels too much, you can prop your elbow up on some blocks or some props, pillows, and hold on to your head. And so now the stretch is in a very different place than it was before, but it's nice. It's different but nice. I'm going to stay for about 30 more seconds here. Take a really big breath. Now I'm going to unwind my arm. I'm going to take my head back to the center with a little bit of support because that's a big stretch in the neck. And then I'm just going to move around a little bit. And eventually I'm going to wind up back where I started in all fours. But not yet. Just a few moments of moving around. Okay. Now, once you get to your all fours position, you might decide that you want to do a little bit of those little cat shapes. Right? Okay. So when you're ready, you're gonna, hold on, I've got to smooth out my pants. All right, we're gonna bring the opposite leg forward. So I turned around just because I think it's easier to see the angles here. So I'm in this lunge with my left foot forward now and my right knee on the ground, and my hip is over my knee, and I just moved my foot forward, okay? So now I've got that kind of room to move. I've got a block here for support, I've got a piece of furniture for support, so I'm going to send my hips forward and then backward. So we're going to just do this kind of floating forward thing. See where that stretch occurs. And then float backwards. And you may not even need to get your leg all the way straight to feel that stretch in your hamstrings. Right? You might feel it all right away. So floating forward and floating backward. I'm going to do that about 3 more times. Well, I'm going to. You can do it as many times as you want. If you want to do it more or less, go for it. All right, so now I've done this third time. I'm going to pause here and hold on to this lunge. Kind of give myself this little bit of a back bending shape. So I'm feeling this stretch in the front of my hip. Take one more breath. And then we're going to take the hips back and fold over this front leg. And again, I'm kind of trying to stay right over the leg so that I get this outer portion of my hamstrings. You can kind of think about the hamstrings as being divided into 2 halves. So on the inside, you've got 2 muscles. On the outside, it's 1 muscle, but it has 2 heads. Like this muscle is called the biceps because it has 2 heads. So does this one. It's called biceps femoris. And so it sort of feels like almost feels like there's 4 muscles, 2 on this side, 2 on the other side. So we're going to get to the ones on the inside, right, by kind of leaving this leg mostly straight, walking the torso out here to the diagonal, and then seeing like, can I keep that leg straight as I fold forward into this? So for me anyway, this swings more of the stretch to the inside. And this may or may not be what you feel, but notice what you do feel, because that's interesting too. Oh. Take one more breath. Okay. So again, you could, if you've got the range of motion for it, just pop this hip down on the floor. If you don't have the range of motion for that, put your leg back down so you're on all fours, and then just come around, sit on your hips. Put your butt on the floor, and then you're there. So the left leg is the straight leg, the right leg is the bent leg. And if I sat down, if I just sort of settled in, then I just have to move my right leg around to the inside, okay? So I get this in the yin world, this is called a half of a dragonfly. And in the rest of the world, it might be Ardha Upavista Konasana, or you might, you know, can make up other names for it if you like. But you just kind of give your, the long leg kind of a moment to find the right position. And you can keep it more active or less active. And then I'm going to stretch this arm over my ear, and I'm going to hold this guy for about a minute, and then I'll hold the other guy for a minute or so. My little brown coworker here is very busy today. She has a big agenda. She's been up for many hours looking into all the things, trying to find all the things. She has found several things that she has now stashed underneath the couch. There are times where I feel like I'm the CEO of this organization, and then there are times like today where I'm very clear that I am not. And so I've been here almost a minute. I'm going to take my arm now, kind of nestle it in, so I can go a little bit more for the stretch in the neck. And this, you know, by bringing my arm into this position, I ask different muscles to be lengthened and different muscles to be contracted. So I just get a different pose. It's slightly different. It's a little tiny variation, but it's nice. It's nice to switch it up. Enjoying this kind of hanging of my head right now. But if I were going to do this for much longer, we're going to stay about 30 more seconds, but if we're going to do this for another whole minute, I might want to put that little support underneath my head. If you're feeling vulnerable in your neck, add the support. Oh, this is an area where I often carry tension and stress, and so like just having it, like pause for a moment, stretch it, and breathe is a really nice way. Take one more. And then I'm going to unwind my arm, and come all the way up to the top. And just holding a shape for me. Here's the thing. This is for me. Holding a shape for a little while and breathing into it is a really nice sort of way to do a couple things. One, to bring more of my own attention and awareness to that place. Two, I feel like when I let it go, there's this really nice sort of movement of fluid. Now it could be that I'm making that up, but like, there's a little bit more blood flow to that area. There's a little bit more, you know, especially around the joints located in those places, a little more synovial fluid. Just feels like everything is a little smoother. And I like that sensation. Ugh. All right, so we're going to come back to, one more time, we're going to come back to our all fours position. Well, not the last time, but one more time. Back to an all fours position. Now for this, I need to get my hair out of my face, so I'm going to put my hair up real quick, and then I'll join you guys there. Oh. Now this all fours position, we're going to wind up turning into a kind of warrior two leg position. We're going to actually do a side angle and a little triangle. So you can do that from downward dog, or you can do that from the lunge. So if you're up for some downward dog, tuck your toes, hands about shoulder distance apart, lift your hips. Oh, and if you're not up for that, just do some cat shapes with your kneeling position. Oh. And I like to move my shoulder blades around on my back once I get here so I can really feel the muscles that connect my shoulder blade into my upper back. Draw back through the hips, kind of feel out the stretch in the backs of the legs. I've already been in my hamstrings a little bit, so this is kind of, I'm feeling kind of nice. All right, so then you can either step forward with one foot, or you can get yourself on your feet. Bring one foot forward and one foot back, okay? So just depending on how this is gonna work best for you. Now you want enough room that when you bend your knee, it doesn't go past your ankle, and that it feels like you're solid. And don't worry about the feet lining up with the feet in any one particular way. Here's what you want to worry about. Put your hip in a position that feels like it's kind of pointing to the side, right, of your mat. Like if that's the front and that's the back, it's pointing a little bit to the side. It's going to be on a diagonal, don't worry about that. And then if this knee is falling inward, that means you're trying to jerk this hip around with your pelvis more often than not. So let your pelvis come in a position where you can keep your knee tracking forward. So your toes and your knee are moving that way, and then adjust the back leg so that it allows that to happen. And this is going to be the best way to line yourself up with the least amount of problematic stuff, okay? So this is the Warrior Two leg arrangement. And within the Warrior Two, there's a bunch of poses that use the same leg arrangement. We got Warrior Two, and then we've got this one that we're going to do today, which is called side angle pose. I've got lots of options for my arm here. And then we're gonna move between side angle and triangle, so we're gonna straighten out the leg, okay? So we're gonna bend in, and I'm gonna stretch through this arm, and then I'm gonna take it out and make it a triangle. And I'll get to my arm in a minute on that one. Stretch it open, oh, bring it back, okay? One more time, stretch it open. Oh. And now we're gonna land in the triangle pose, and I can put my hand on my shin, or I can put my hand on this block. And now I'm gonna play with my top shoulder. So I'm gonna roll it around, and I wanna find the connection between my shoulder blades and both of these arms, like I've got a pair of wings. My arm may not poke all the way up to the ceiling because I may not have that much rotation in my spine. So wherever your arm points is fine. It's off at a diagonal, it's off at a diagonal, man. It's your bones, my friends, or the tension in your muscles. Both are equally strong. So 2 more breaths here. Now I'm going to swing this arm again behind my back. I'm going to bend my knee and bring my elbow up to my thigh, and take this last little few breaths in side angle. My legs might be getting tired. Hang with me. 2 more breaths. Just move your head up and down. Inhale one more time. Look up over your top shoulder. And then exhale it back. All right, we're going to switch sides, but before we do that, we're going to come around to the middle. And ooh, gosh, I love that feeling of one butt cheek having done like a ton of work. And the other hip is like, what about me, man? Oh, don't worry, we're coming there. We're getting there. So we're just gonna shake, like do little side to side moves. Give everything a little shimmy. I like to try to draw little figure eights in the sky with my hips. Oh. Shake out your neck. Can you feel a difference between one side of your neck and the other, having done a little bit of work on one side? Oh, it's really cool. All right, I'm bringing my block over this way because I know I'm going to want to use it for my triangle. So I'm going to just put that nearby. I'm going to organize my feet so that I'm pointing, this leg is pointing out that way. And then I'm, bend your knee. Don't, if you turn your pelvis and this leg starts to collapse, let your pelvis go with this leg, and then rotate the back leg so it fits. Everything fits together. And there's your Warrior Two. And then what we're going to do today, which is this kind of side angle, stretch it. So we're stretching this whole thing out. Okay? And then we're going to triangle it, and I'm just letting my arm just float. And then side angle. Oh gosh, that feels nice. And then float. And I'm finding I want to make like a tiny adjustment to my legs, so I'm just making that adjustment along the way. And then float. Okay, one more, okay? So one more side angle. Oh, we'll come back to that guy in a second. And then we're going to come to this triangle. And again, I'm going to give my shoulders a little bit of a connection. So I'm using this block almost like it's an extension of my arm, so that
Oh, I'm connecting to my arm here, drawing that shoulder into my back, finding the connection between my two shoulder blades, and then extending up my top arm. And my top arm doesn't usually point directly at the ceiling. If I hyperextend it, it will, but I want it to stay with my back. And it also means that I'm gonna strengthen the front of my shoulder because gravity wants to pull me that way. I'm gonna strengthen the back of my upper and mid back because those muscles are working against gravity. So, everything's getting stronger, y'all. Last big breath. Oh, okay. So now we're gonna bring this arm around behind. We're gonna come into the side angle for just a couple breaths. We're gonna do this movement with the neck. So we're looking up, inhale. And looking down, exhale. And looking up, inhale. And looking down, exhale. Last breath, looking up, inhale. And looking down, exhale. Whoo. And then we're coming back to our wide angle here. Oh. This is one of my favorite poses. I don't know if you guys like this pose. Okay, but I like it. So we're turning the toes out a little bit so we can do a little bit more of this kind of flow back and forth. Go wide enough that you can almost get into a squat. And some people will actually get into a squat here, okay? And then over here to this squat. Oh. And over here to this squat. Oh. And over here to this squat. Back and forth one more time. Whoops, I got stuck. I got stuck. Okay, so we're gonna bring ourselves into a pigeon or a pigeon equivalent. Okay, so you can step back into your downward dog if you like, or you can come down to all fours. And then you're going to bring one leg forward if you're going to do the regular pigeon. And then sort of lengthen back through the back leg. Get as close to the ground as you can. You can put pillows in here to fill up the space between the ground and you. Now, that's option one. Option two is to do what's called, in some places this is called double pigeon. Some people call it cow face. Some people call it square pose. So I'm going to take that right leg that was the front pigeon leg and I'm going to bring it on top of my left leg. And sometimes it's the knees on top or sometimes it's the shins on top. For me, it's always shins. And I also like to just slide my ankle joint off my delicate little inner thigh. That spot right there is very sensitive. So I put a block up here and that works. So this is another option and I like this option. And then the last option would be you can lay on your back and cross your right leg over your left leg and hold on to the legs. So you're just kind of choosing the version of the pose that works best for you. Now understand that each one is slightly different, but we're all going to get something in this outer upper portion of our hip, down the side of the thigh, buttock region. We're all going to get into that territory. Oh. Depending on where you have tension, you'll feel it in different places. So we're going to stay with this guy about halfway through at this point. I'm going to stay for about another minute and a half or so. I'm doing these little like back and forths with my neck, just trying to keep a little sense of relaxation and tension-free feeling to my neck and my jaw. Sometimes when I notice this for myself, and maybe it's just me, but in any case, sometimes when I stretch these kind of really deep tissue areas, or I get into these kind of places that are a little bit saltier, a little spicier, my face tightens up. Like my jaw will get a little snug, or I'll find myself kind of thinning out or squeezing my lips together, or maybe that little space right between the eyebrows gets a little connected, a little wrinkled up. So letting myself relax my face is nice. Now we got about 30 seconds left with this shape. Relax all the wrinkles out of your face. Now, if you're doing the regular pigeon where you've got the right leg forward and left leg back, you're going to take a big breath. You're going to lean into your right hip, and you're going to kind of roll that left leg around to the front. And then for the people who joined me with the seated version, we're going to unwind the legs. And if you're on your back, you're going to unwind your legs. And then give yourself a little bit of movement in the hip joints, right? A little bit of movement in the legs. Maybe you want to move the relationship between the pelvis and the spine. So you're just going to move around a little bit. What is your story? You are so busy today. Oh. Guess what we're gonna do, y'all? That's right. We're gonna do the other side. So the good news is, if you decided to do this on your back and you're still laying on your back, all you gotta do is throw your other leg up on top. If you decided to do it this way, seated version, it's not that much more complicated. We just gotta reorganize which leg's on the top and which leg's on the bottom. And if you're doing the regular pigeon, you may want to go back into down dog or back to all fours and step your left leg forward and kind of snuggle into your pose there with all the props that are necessary. So we've all kind of chosen here in the virtual yoga room, we've all chosen a pose that's right for us. And we'll stay a while, about 3 minutes. Again, I'm sort of just noticing how I generally will carry tension. I'm kind of playing with my neck. I'm relaxing around my mouth. These kind of yummy things. So we've got 1 minute left, y'all. One of the things I like about doing yin postures, and yin is really, like we get into a place where we feel something and we just stay a while. You don't want it to be too sharp, just the right amount, just enough. And one of the things I like about it is that I like watching the sort of landscape change, right? Because it doesn't stay exactly the same the whole time. Some of the sensations soften. Some other places I find tension and I didn't realize was there. Sometimes I can feel the individual muscle fibers that are resistant. So
oh, I thought that this tension was coming from up here, but really it's coming from down here. So I just find that really fascinating and interesting. It's like, where, you know, it helps me find places in my body I don't really always pay attention to. So take a big breath. You're gonna float yourself up and release your legs, or you're gonna unwind your legs, or you're gonna lean into that left hip and bring your right leg around, depending on the pose you chose. And then we're gonna jiggle out a bit. So we've got these kind of themes going where we are doing some things that sort of ask our outer hips to do a lot of work, like the warrior 2 side angle, triangle kind of flow, and we did things that ask the front of our hip to do a little bit of work and the hamstrings to do a little bit of work. So we're going to come back around to that hamstring territory, and we're going to do a pose called the caterpillar, and this is a forward bending shape. You can have your legs really close together, but I let mine, like, where do my legs naturally want to land, and then I let them go there. And so we're going to see if we can get really soft, because this is going to stretch everything in the back body, and we're not pulling. This is the most important thing. We're allowing. Okay? So if you need to help you to create allowing, get some blocks and maybe some little throw pillows that you've got laying around, and build up a little stack so that you have a place to land. So you can just land on these pillows, okay? So I'm gonna put my forehead down in a second, but this way you can hear my voice. And just let yourself fall into this shape. So we're just gently holding this space. Not pulling, not tugging, not trying to do anything. We're just gonna let gravity do its work. Oh. Now, we're going to stay for about 2 more minutes, so we're about halfway here. So just notice, if there's any discomfort at all, either put in some more props or just back off a little bit. If it feels like your body is softened a little bit, you can let yourself lean a little further forward. So just modify as you go, as you need.
last 30 seconds or so here. Take a nice big breath. You're gonna float yourself all the way up. You're gonna lean back and bend your knees. So then straight a while. And then we're gonna give ourselves a little movement. Now yogis, the last thing we're gonna do before Shavasana is we're gonna do a twist to either side. And again, we're gonna hold this in a little bit more of the yin kind of way. So we'll stay a while. So we're gonna lay on our back. So when you're ready, you'll go there. Oh. Now I know I'm gonna want something under my legs. So I'm gonna get my little pillow, but you could also do a blanket. And if it's a little chilly at your house, you might want a blanket handy just to cover up with, okay? So once you're on your back, give yourself a little bit of a kind of back massagey. Just, feels nice after a pose like that where we've kind of lengthened out the back muscles. It feels kind of nice to give them a little bit of pressure against the floor. It does in my world. I hope it does in yours. Okay. So we're going to take the legs over one direction or the other. And you can test it out. Like you could do a little bit to this side and a little bit to that side and see if there's a... I'm feeling like I want to go left to start with today. There's some people have ideas that you should go one way or the other. And that has to do with like pressure in your colon. And I don't feel like I notice much of a difference. Now, there are some exceptions to that, but mostly I don't. So I feel like you can do it either way. But if you have a particular way of doing it, definitely do it your way. Okay, so I've got my legs arranged. I've put this pillow under the bottom leg so that I can take my top leg and kind of drop it over the top of the stack. And what that does for me is it just creates a tiny bit of sensation right here in my outer hip. If I don't have the leg over, I don't get that sensation. It's not the end of the world. I mean, it's nice, but it's not the, the only thing going. But I like it. So that gives me that little setup. And it kind of gives this whole sort of back end, side edge of my hip a little bit more sensation. Again, I'm not going when we're talking about yin yoga, we're not going for tons of sensation. It's like, oh, there, I feel that. That's the spot. Okay, now my arm is out to the side and I've got like a cactus shape like that, okay? And then I'm turning my head towards the direction my knees are going in. And I can experiment with that too. You can turn it the other way, but for me, usually, when I hold it a while, I like it to go with. And we're gonna stay for about another minute or so here. So a couple minutes total. As I'm staying here, I'm feeling my body just relax a little more deeply, which I really like. I like that sensation of everything letting go. Take a nice big breath. And then we're going to bring this top leg back. And we're going to pause in the middle. And I like sometimes to do these little windshield wiper moves and sometimes to bring the legs back in to the chest. So you could do it either way. And when it feels like your spine is kind of back to neutral, and that's really what we're kind of waiting out,
As we're letting the fluid move back in the spine the way it kind of more naturally is held. Then, and for me it just takes a second and I notice like, oh yeah, I don't still feel like I'm twisting that direction anymore. So you just, when you're ready, when that sort of occurs, let your legs come over the other way. And again, you can adjust your legs however you like. If you want to do this thing that I'm doing where you kind of throw that top leg over, you can wrap that leg around the bottom leg another time. And then I'm going to take my arm out with this kind of cactus shape, find the right spot for that, and turn my head the other way. Now, if I get into a pose and I realize, oh, I don't really like that as much as I thought I would, you just change it, man. So it's going to be fine. Oh. We've got about 30 more seconds, yogis. Yogis, we're going to take a big inhale and just bring this leg back to the center. Oh, that might have been longer than 30 seconds. Felt like 30 seconds. All right, so once you've given yourself like the little windshield wipers and all the little things you need to get comfy, it's time for Shavasana. So we're going to stretch the legs out. Oh, kind of organize a little bit through the upper back. And if you're like me, this is really helpful. So I like to have just a little kind of soft support on the back bones of my skull. If it's too thick, it'll cause trouble. So I use either, a little thin blanket or a little towel, or I roll my yoga mat up and just kind of tuck that soft support against the little ridges on the back of my skull. And it makes everything feel much more relaxed. So give that a try if you're curious. And then we're going to let the body relax. So you might need like a little bit of sort of readjustment. You might need to rest your feet on the floor in some way. So you're going to try to let the arm bone release down into the socket. And try to let your hips release into the hip sockets. Let your breath get softer. yogis, just gently notice that your body is here on the floor. And notice your breath. And then you're going to take a nice deep breath. Let go with a big deep Now, wiggle your fingers and toes and stretch them out. And we'll take another deep breath and stretch. Let go with it. Bring the knees into your chest and give yourself a little back massage. Oh, yogis. All right. So you can come up in whatever way makes sense to you. So let's do one more big breath together. Nice big inhale. Big deep sigh. Enjoy the rest of your week. Namaste. At least the rest of your day.